recently wrote an article titled How Strong Communications Planning Strengthens Your Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Work. Here are a few sections from that article. Communications Planning for DEIB Work. The time to gently begin incorporating diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging practices across businesses, schools, and organizations has long ago passed. Immediate action is now essential. Unfortunately, a lot of leaders slept on their responsibilities to activate these practices in a more strategic way, back when there was still ample time to plan for the long haul. As a result, even the most well intentioned managers of mission driven institutions currently find themselves in the midst of accelerated challenges, unable to clearly and consistently guide their teams through the difficulties inherent in the work of dismantling racist systems and rebuilding for equity. The problems created by top down leadership structures have reached a point of stark clarity. Business as usual is no longer an option when long overdue changes are knocking down the doors of new and old industries alike. To rise above this crisis point, we must take stock of our current situation, be honest about where we find ourselves, acknowledge our failures, reevaluate our approach to leadership, and invest in building a transformative communications plan that empowers our communities of practice to embrace meaningful, long-lasting change. Don't believe the hype. Avoid one-off DEIB training sessions. There is no magic formula for establishing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in businesses, schools, and organizations. If you have ever been on a team tasked with addressing deeply entrenched racist organizational practices, you're more likely to understand that doing true anti racism work is an uphill battle requiring long term commitment and deep investments for success. Even the most primed organizations who are truly committed to doing the hard work face an ever present resistance to dismantling broken systems and redistributing power for equity and inclusion. Organizational change is a frightening prospect for most people under normal circumstances. In the midst of a global pandemic, the visceral uncertainty of change and the panic surrounding the unknown further complicate the situation by introducing new layers of anxiety and stress previously unimagined. If you find yourself among the many leaders who failed to do the groundwork on this in the calm before the storm, fear not. There is hope for you yet. Whatever you do, wherever you find yourself at the moment, avoid the quick fix mentality plaguing leaders pressed for time. Know and understand that there is no silver bullet for the work ahead. Anyone selling DEIB change in the form of a one-off day-long workshop is fooling both themselves and you. As a leader, you do a disservice to your organization and the community at large by introducing short-sighted stopgap measures in moments of reckoning requiring bold action on anti-racism and deep investments in DEIB transformation. The complexity of undoing decades of racism in the workplace call for a historic consciousness, a real understanding of the why in the change process, and a willingness to lead by example in examining oneself, dissecting one's own internal biases, and acknowledging complicity in having maintained the status quo for so long. This work is not for weak-willed individuals who wish to hide behind heavily branded vanity commitment statements on anti-racism. The public has grown wise to this form of platitude and will not accept anything less than authenticity in action and in service of the greater good. As a leader embracing the coming of a more inclusive post-pandemic world, you must be thoughtful and intentional about how you proceed from this point forward. Begin this work in earnest by first acknowledging the scope of the problem, planning out strategies for long-term change management, and carving plans to activate meaningful structural changes in your organization. Be prepared to invest in building and maintaining the proper infrastructure and support systems for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and make it a priority to consistently communicate expectations and outcomes. An honest assessment and tangible action plan are much more likely to yield measurable, long-lasting results. If your organization makes a public statement about your commitment to supporting Black lives and doing anti-racist work, be prepared to roll up your sleeves and prove your commitment through powerful action that can stand the test of time. To do this, you will need to surround yourself with truth tellers who are willing to speak up on critical issues, especially when it is most difficult to do so. There are many knowledgeable professionals with a track record of successfully helping organizations transform workflows for best practices in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Invest time in reaching out to these professionals and be sure to compensate them well for the value that their work brings in consultation or in positions of leadership at your organization. To set realistic expectations from the beginning, it's important to know that merely investing in expert DEIB support will not be enough. You will also need to develop the ability to listen, hear, and receive the hard truths these experts help surface about yourself, your leadership style, and your organizational practices. You will need to think deeply, plan strategically, communicate clearly and consistently, and finally, you will have to actively lead on all parts of the process. If you can commit to doing all of these things for the long haul, then you have a real opportunity to inspire the teams you lead and move your people closer to changing the world for the better. The work is difficult but worthwhile. As a leader, you must believe that the work is possible and worth investing in, because in truth, it is. And now, more than ever, we all know it. Communication inroads for strengthening diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging practices. Here are 4 tangible inroads to build a strong communications plan that supports long-term work on DEIB initiatives. A. Leadership buy-in. Excuses are tools of the incompetent used to build bridges to nowhere and monuments of nothingness, a quote attributed to Barack Obama. Change starts with you. If you're privileged enough to be in a position of power, then you have the responsibility to use that power to create opportunity for others. Bring your board along for the ride. Avoid making excuses for yourself and others in power. Instead, lean into the inevitable discomfort that change brings and be proactive in becoming an ambassador for DEIB consciousness in leadership circles. Make a monthly practice of using your voice in newsletters, blogs, audio and video podcasts, and other thought leadership opportunities. Lead from a place of courage on the issues and share your personal challenges, growth, and learning process in restructuring for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. If you make a mistake, admit it. Acknowledge it right away. Talk about what you have learned and keep moving forward. Most people don't expect perfection from leadership. They mainly seek humanity and humility. Your willingness to discuss the journey of transformative change can inspire buy-in not only from the people you lead, but also from other leaders who might otherwise continue to look the other way on critical top-down anti-racism work. Leading on this front means refusing to enable those most comfortable by the status quo. It means pushing yourself and your peers to follow through on inclusive leadership. In meetings, conferences, and networking events, help these birds of a feather branch out. Entice them to see through your own practice both the business value proposition of DEIB initiatives and the remarkable personal growth opportunity in doing social good. These things can be structurally implemented, tracked, and measured for success, and the research is there to back it all up. Diversity and inclusion is both a good cultural practice and a savvy business investment. According to Carol Fulp, author of Success Through Diversity, Why the Most Inclusive Companies Will Win, businesses are investing in diversity practices not only because it is good for strengthening the social fabric of our shared civic life, but also because it increasingly shows economic promise for boosting the bottom line in continuously fluctuating global markets. Citing a McKinsey & Company report titled Why Diversity Matters, Fulp explains that diversity in leadership can help a company secure access to more sources of talent, gain a competitive recruitment advantage, and improve its global relevance. Conclusion. Along with investing in expert professional support for anti-racism training during the change management process and during the long-term development and implementation strategy of your DEIB organizational practice, it is worth investing in building a solid system for capturing, managing, analyzing, and reporting data that can speak directly to accountability measures and economic business progress. Ultimately, DEIB efforts are about putting people first and allowing your focus on human-centered leadership to improve your overall business practice. If you need support planning clear communications for DEIB organizational redevelopment, please visit bridgebull.com for additional information on creative communications consulting and book a startup session to plan a communication strategy for your new inclusive leadership practice. Thank you for investing valuable attention on Bold Hour content. Your time is much appreciated. Best of luck with everything. Peace and love, y'all.